A league memory. I think I have so many.
I was at my cousin with all his friends and we played 5v5 custom and I was doing really well. I thought that was so fun.
I'm not joking, when I started playing ranked, like that's my highlight. Like I went like first season to Platinum 1, like that was the most fun thing ever.
One of my best friends, he was better than me at the time, and then I kept playing 1v1 against him. So we played 1v1 Monday, and then a week went by and then we played another 1v1, and then all of a sudden I started winning against him, and I was just like, yeah, I'm better than you now.
Nice to hear from Fittle. He's always good in interviews as well, so good to see him on screen a little bit more. Now, let's get into the next game of the day, Fnatic versus Barrage. Let's start things off quite clearly with Fnatic. They are the only team to have been completely undefeated in the league so far. Most teams have elevated Fnatic to a pedestal above the rest of the competition. I feel like that might be deserved given what we've seen so far.
And in all honesty, when we're talking about a very dominant team, we're talking about teams smashing all the weaker on paper teams. Fnatic came last week smashing M&M. They didn't even give them air to breathe in this game. So this is what you're expecting from a team who wants to sort of like roller coaster their way through the entire tournament, going further and further up, but then sort of the roller coaster breaks and they stay onto that, you know, onto that sort of upward motion, so they never fall. And this is what Fnatic is doing right now. They're breaking the system.
Yeah,
that was my rant.
Fails and they keep going up forever.
But they never fall. They break the system.
Yeah, but honestly, like, we hold them to that broken roller coaster standard, apparently.
Yeah.
Because to me, Fnatic looked a bit struggling, at least in their first game they had, and that was actually against Barrage 2, where they almost threw a fight against the level 16 Kassadin. But after that point, I actually think that Fnatic has been looking really clean. They always come in with a late game team fight composition. They always come in with a weak side top laner, except once for Pride, where Pride actually popped off too. But it's just the same textbook Fnatic every time. We talk about it, some of the other teams, for example, not Riddle, but BTXL, who's a little all over the place, both on the map, but also in team fights. But Fnatic has looked like one of the teams that are way more coordinated, and rightfully so, they are at the top of that broken roller coaster.
And I think there's an interesting discussion to be had there about like how long do you need to make sure you've perfected a playstyle, right? Because you could say maybe we mimic what the LEC team is doing and experiment a little bit more, try things out a little bit more. Obviously not losing like the LEC team is, but maybe we try and do something a little bit different that isn't just our normal late game team fighting composition against these weaker teams like Barrage. I wonder if Fnatic will say, okay, we've won 5 games, we don't actually need to go perfectly, and instead we can try out some new things in the second half of the split.
Now, I didn't necessarily predict Barrage here, but let's not forget that Yadron has solo killed Magi Felix, and it's fine, Gilbot. Before you jump in there and say, this guy took a tower shot on his own, all right? This guy was like super low underneath enemy tower, greeting for the tower plating. A solo kill is a solo kill, and credit where credit is due, okay? This is the only guy in the league who has solo killed Magi Felix, and in all honesty, I think how I would compare these two teams is that Fnatic likes to play the globals, and they play them really well. And then I feel like Barrage is a Fnatic light. They pick the globals, they pick the side lane pressure, but they don't necessarily know how to execute around that. So this is where I feel like the weakness lie, but I think this is where the strengths lie as well. So they've got the good split pushes. Now you need to know how to execute that to perfection, but is out macroing Fnatic a strategy that can work against them? That might be a little bit hard.
Well, this is the question. I think you've kind of touched on it ever so slightly there, Trouble. That obviously I know that you're a big Barrage fangirl. I know you sort of you do believe in them as a roster. How and in what world do Barrage beat Fnatic? That is the question, because that is the game that we're going to be having coming our way, and Barrage need the win. So in what world does it happen?
Well, I think Trouble actually started to touch on it when she was talking just a moment earlier, right? Like, Barrage have a really good split push when they can enact it. Like, Dreedy is actually a good split pusher. Jadron in a side lane can work really well. The issue has been not the fact that they don't know what they want to do, but it's just that little bit of execution. Now, Fnatic might not be the team where you can solidify your execution, where you can fix those mistakes, but I would like to see Barrage at least trying to, because when they get their playstyle online, they can be really powerful.
I guess the follow-up question on that is very quickly, what is their playstyle? I mean, is it just Fnatic Light, or is there a bit more to it than that, Guldborg?
Honestly, there's more to it. We can say it's Fnatic Light in that sense that they also like to play late game, but the way they like to play late game is way different than Fnatic. They like to have laners that facilitate Dan in Fnatic too, or often Dan is able to facilitate himself. It's not per se the same playstyle we see from Flipper, where Flipper is very lane facilitating himself. He really likes to get his solo lanes ahead, especially because they play from them. And then you kind of see the way that the support and bot lane kind of works. I'm still not quite sure of the identity of the Barrage bot. They have seen a bit different from me too, but one thing is for certain, both teams like getting to the late game, but they like to do it in different ways.
Well, I think we'll get a lot from Draft in terms of where these teams are aiming in the game. And speaking of, it's coming up after a short break.
Stay sweet summertime, sipping in a high, we caught a fever for two. Go together like neon in the night, I know I'm better with you. I know that you see me the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all in you every time. You make me feel good. 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 Here by my side, I'm in love with every little thing that you do. You're my paradise. As long as I got you, I know my sky will be blue. I know that you see me. I know you see me the way that I am, the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all in you every time. You make me feel good. 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 You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like I'm falling. Know that I'm all in you every time. You make me feel good.
I feel like I'm in a dream, 'cause nothing is as it seems. I feel like I'm in a dream, but that's where I wanna be. And I feel free for the first time. And I feel free for the first time. For the first time. For the first time.
right, draft is up. It is going to be Fnatic on the blue side and Barrage on red. Immediately, Bravado's Taric has been banned away. I have no idea why Medic's laughing. He does this a lot.
It's just like the Thresh Taric bans. It's just like, there's the Thresh and Bravado's Taric. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't see this in any other game. Maybe the Thresh you would see as a first ban in another game. No other game would this happen.
But Kha'Zix, who went completely under the radar. Obviously, he got he got buffed in this patch. Instead of 100% isolated damage, he got to 120. I didn't think it was going to have the biggest impact on competitive play, though. But here we actually see this ban coming in against Flipper, out of all people.
I actually feel the opposite. If it would have an impact somewhere, it would be pro play, because you usually play the assassins much more carefully and you can construct a team around it. And since we know that Barrage likes to play their side lanes, a Kha'Zix would have been a very useful tool to have there to facilitate for them.
Now, Volibear is still up and available if they want to go along that route. He got changed a bit, but I mean, we go back to the Ashe, and as you said yourself earlier, Scoundrel, it's been used a lot in Korea and just one of the top tier AD carries too, especially when Ophelia has been touched on a bit, then Ezreal out of the ban pick. Just get the Ashe then if you prefer it.
I am wondering if you just go Aphelios into this. Like, even though Aphelios has been nerfed a little bit over the last few patches, you're actually relatively strong in lane. You get pushed in, but you scale really well. It's not going to be Vayne. That would be really, really stupid. But the Karma Aphelios, I think that actually worked really well here. You can counter push, and then you have some pressure.
It really hovers Vayne every time because he used to play Vayne top, so that's why.
That makes sense.
In all honesty, I would just like to bring into the light our Lord and Savior Kog'Maw that's not necessarily mid lane AP and can go bot lane. You already have, on one hand some shields, and then you can have a Lulu on the other hand in the second rotation to try and trick them, think that Karma maybe is going bot lane, so you can use it that way, but that means that Barrage will shift their whole playstyle around their ADC, and are they willing to do that?
We've seen this before, Trouble. They have locked in Kog'Maw bottom. It didn't work, and they said specifically, we're not too keen on that too again. But I do see the idea in it. But with Karma coming through here, they're actually going up against an Ashe Nautilus lane, and that is just engage coming in from the bottom lane here. So you don't actually need too much engage coming from your jungler and your top laner now. They can free them up a bit, especially when you go up against the top laner like Dreedy, who's keen on going on these carry champion performances.
In all honesty, just bring back Morgana. Put the Karma into the mid lane. This is a Yadron special. He's really feeling himself. It's like, oh baby, I've solo killed you once on that Twisted Fate. I'll do it again on the Azir. I don't care. I don't discriminate. But I'm going back to my point. Bring Morgana back. There's way too much lockdown in the bot lane between the Nautilus and the Ashe. There's way too much CC. There's way too much lockdown, which is, these days it's a very popular word as well. But I feel like I haven't seen Morgana much, and I would like to see her back in play, especially now that they're playing against these two.
And you make a good case. I do want to highlight, though, this is for those of you at home that don't know, this is one of Jadron's favorite champions. He's particularly skilled at it. He's very good at negotiating the early laning phase. And versus MagiFelix's Azir, he's going to bloody have to be, because this is going to be a rough matchup for him. But post 6, there is plenty of kill pressure. And as the analyst quite rightly mentioned, this is almost like our equivalent of I solo killed Faker. He did solo kill MagiFelix at one point in the previous game. So there is always that opportunity there. Now, obviously, the second ban rotation is coming through. 80 carries are being pinched for Fnatic Rising. They're sort of taking them off the board. They're going to make sure that Barrage are limited. I would imagine with Ezreal and Aphelios gone, obviously Varus isn't so strong anymore. Who are we thinking would be taken off? Who do we think we're going to focus down with another 80 carry ban here?
Well, you could always get rid of something like the MF or even a split pusher like the Camille to get Dreedy off that. I was wondering here whether Fnatic Rising would want to pick something like the Set, because Set actually works really well into Kassadin, and you can flip the Azir up into top lane. We have actually seen it happen before. I think it was in NLC. It could have been somewhere else.
Yeah, it was Wazer.
Yeah, it was tricked. So we've seen it happen before, and you can actually really shut down the Kassadin early. Also gives you a bit more physical damage. Team it up with a strong ganking jungler, that could be really powerful. I'm a little surprised by the center here, but what it could indicate is that Karma's going top lane, and we're going to see something like a Wukong down in the bottom lane.
Yeah, what I would say is that I think that the theory for Azir top works, but I don't see that as something that Pride would play efficiently. It's not something that I really see
you
Pride
just put
playing.
Magic Felix top lane and put Pride in mid lane.
Sure, sure, that makes sense then. Yeah, they wouldn't do the swapperoo like we saw with Razor and the switcheroo. Who says swapperoo? What is
Well, you said it, mate, and we believe you.
It's going to be the Wukong locked in here for Fnatic Rising. They're going to round out their composition now with something that Dan got the reverse sweep on 3 games in a row versus BTXL in the UKLC finals. It is his Rek'Sai going in for Dan, and that is the composition rounded out for Fnatic, and we'll see how Barrage choose to respond with their final pick.
I like how fast Xmati locked in that Wukong for Pride. He was like, we know you got that center, but you're not getting it, right? That's ours. And now we actually have a team composition where you can play through a lot of utility through the Ashe and Nautilus towards the bottom. But with Rek'Sai, you also have a lot of agency for coming in towards a mobile Kassadin in the mid lane. So there's a lot of room for Dan to come in and punish the team composition over at Barrage. And they're actually locked in for the Renekton. So it's a Karma center bot lane. Haven't really seen that one before.
So you can do this as a center farming. We've seen a lot of just general AD carry centers, especially from Sandbox in the LCK. It looks like it's going to be Karma farming with center support or fasting center. But what I'm really worried for Barrage here is the amount of powerful engage coming out from Fnatic Rising and the lack of disengage from Barrage, and even the lack of damage from Barrage. Like, yes, Volibear has some, but he was nerfed on this patch. Renekton, unless he gets ahead, can only really be a meat shield, and that Kassadin, before he gets to level 16, isn't going to have damage in fights. You don't have a consistent auto-attacking AD carry. You don't have a lot of threat. Fnatic get anywhere near team fights in the mid game, I think Barrage is just going to get run over.
I want 100% agree. The first thing that I noticed about the Barrage composition is the lack of damage. And even though we're like, well, Kassadin needs to be level 16, by the time he's level 16, he will be on a side lane trying to split push. He's not going to try to fight a heavy engaged composition from Fnatic, right? It's going to be extremely hard for him to get into the back line unless he finds the perfect flank. And how in the world is a Senna Karma going to survive a hard engage at level 6 from a Nautilus Ashe? This is my concern here for Barrage.
Well, stranger things have happened today. We have seen, obviously, Singularity pick up a win in a matchup that they were not favored in. So, expect the unexpected. But you know what is expected? Our casters. It's Hit, Rain, and Not.
Cheers, mate. All right, let's get diving into this Fnatic versus Barrage matchup. Fnatic 4-0, Barrage 1-3. The last time these two teams met up, Fnatic did have a lot of control, but there were errors made. The question for me is how much have Fnatic grown since the last time these two teams went head-to-head?
Well, I think you can see that from the performances. Obviously, it was a little bit shaky at first. They still found wins, but there was some performances from individual members that were questionable. But their consistency has just improved over the split, and especially when they're faced up against the stronger teams in the group, who we thought might be troublesome for Fnatic, they've shown a huge level of consistency. And I can't put more emphasis on Dan, who has been a super strong performer. And in this game as well, he's given himself a champion who has that early agency to dictate the game, has the strength to go for those powerful bots, powerful ganks, particularly into bot lane when you're looking at the Karma in the center. And if you snowball that late lane and give the momentum over to Fnatic Rising, I feel like they just run away with this one.
Yeah, it does. Like Medic was saying, these mid-game team fights are just going to be so Fnatic favored unless somehow Barrage are hard snowballing, maybe through Dreedy. We'll have to find out as we're loading through onto the Summons Rift for our second game of the day. The undefeated, the undisputed best team in the league, Fnatic Rising, stepping up here. I'm sure the XL fans might have something to say about that, but I think so far Fnatic have shown us that they are the strongest team in the league.
Absolutely, and it's just difficult because Barrage do have those win conditions. When they get late enough into the game, the casting can be that massive threat, but they're waiting so long for him to come online, and by that point, Dreedy will have fallen off, Flipper won't be as relevant, and that's my concern overall. You really need a strong early start from your top lane and your bot lane if you want to give the room for Jadran to scale up, because this is going to be a situation where he can't really threaten Magic Felix at all before level 6, and even at level 6, it's not like he's going to have a ton of pressure. So it's very much around playing for your outer lanes. So we did have nerfs to Volibear on this patch. You get half as much healing when healing on monsters and a bit less attack speed. which ultimately means his clear is just going to be less healthy and potentially opens up opportunities for Dan to find him and challenge him in that 1v1. If Flipper's low HP, Rek'Sai could have enough damage to just 100-0 him, especially if he catches him without cooldowns.
Yeah, got the Hail of Blades as well, so actually got a lot of upfront burst damage here on this Rek'Sai, especially early. That ward was placed down by Fnatic. They know where Flipper is on the map. They can see his clear path. So they'll be able to at least track some of his pacing in this early game. Dan has not been spotted on the other hand, but I'm sure they'll be able to figure it out. And one thing to note is they have had the old switcheroo. Pride's gone mid and Magic Felix is top.
That's exactly what Medic talked about. And I think if any team, Fnatic Rising are really ones who favor doing this, what we call a human swap, where instead of swapping just the champions, they actually swap the players. We saw it so much from Magi Felix in previous splits, where he'd go top lane with, say, the Cassiopeia, or he'd go bot lane. And we're seeing it here. It means that it's very hard for the Renekton to actually pressure. So speaking of this, Pride in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, Pride actually getting chunked out pretty heavily by Flipper. Looking to jump away, but Flipper just gets first blood.
And it's just greedy. It's just completely greedy. I mean, if you look at what happened, if we actually move over towards where Flipper is in the jungle, which we will in a second. Actually, Den Voxnate.
Yeah, might have to hold that. Den gonna get chunked. The Ignite used by Bravado. Den's able to survive thanks to his shield, but
this is the ward that Pride was going for. And you have to ask yourself, was it necessary? Because he could have put the ward a lot more shallow than that and still got the vision onto the rafters. Instead, Pride got a really deep ward in, and he did not have the luxury to do so. You are level 2 on the Wukong. You know there's a Volibear on the enemy team who can obviously challenge you, can run you down. And it was just a bit of a naive mistake that has actually costed him in this mid lane matchup. Now, the main thing it's cost him is it's given Jadran a bit of a free time, which a Castin loves. But you can see in the top side, Magi Felix is doing fine. It's very hard for Druidi to get on top of Magi Felix. And when he does use his cooldowns to do so, Magi Felix can just harass him heavily after that. You can see how low Druidi is. He is not having a fun time right now.
Yeah, really, really rough laning phase, at least for Druidi. And what's horrible here is, obviously, when you're playing the Renekton, you kind of want to play early. You want to be that constant threat, but it looks like for now, Magi Felix smells something is amiss. There's a lot of vision control by Fnatic on that river. They're able to spot Flipper out, and Magi Felix is just going to go off for his base and spend the gold he's been able to pick up so far.
And you have to sense that Flipper would be coming over. With a TP back in from Druidi being full HP, ready to fight. You expect something like that. Now, Pride taking a lot of damage there.
Yeah, getting flashed on here, slowed by the Sky Splitter, and Pride just overreaching again. Yadrin's able to get that kill. Yadrin once again with a pre-level 6 kill in the mid lane versus Fnatic.
I mean, that's the crazy thing. I mean, last time it was level 6 on the Castin at least. Getting a kill onto the Castin here, pre-6, is insane, especially when it's a champion like Wukong who wants to be able to snowball. And for that reason, I can understand Pride wanting to go in there, wanting to apply pressure when he's against this Kassadin. But it was just a really great setup from Barrage. Flipper was there, Nightmares as well, and this is something that I praise Nightmares for heavily, is his ability to read the map, his ability to know where he should be, and to find opportunities like this. And despite the fact bot lane's been a little bit rough, we saw Den Voxnate lose his flash, the setup mid was really nice, and it has put Pride into a really rough position. And if we're looking at the side of Fnatic Rising, it's the Wukong and the Rek'Sai who will fall off the hardest. With Pride already having a rough early game, it could end up going badly. But Dan is looking here for Flipper.
Yeah, we'll spot him out. You know he's on the ward. They're going to get the knock up. Bravado's making his way forward. Gets him with the hook and the root. Flipper on the run. Heals coming in, though, from Nightmares and Den Voxnate, and Bravado's forced to flash. Maddie nowhere nearby. They actually do land a snare onto Bravado. Dan, maybe overreaching a little bit for this ward, but is able to back out in time after clearing it.
I mean, the critical thing there is that extended fights against a Volibear rough because he has all that healing, obviously. But when he has a Senna and a Karma, it's like you're not killing Flipper. And I feel like they overcommitted a little bit there. Like he has his tower to run to, he has the shielding, the healing from his teammates. Just a little bit naive there, and does end up costing the flash of Bravado.
See the pings coming down. Looks like Flipper actually might be looking to make a move top lane towards Magi Felix. Magi Felix has the flash, and so far not been spotted out on any wards thanks to this pink ward.
It's very
the
hard
brush.
to gank now at this point. He has his ultimate as well. So, and the thing is, Dreedy has to pick up that massive wave. This is the thing, is that you kind of just, there's been no way to really pressure Magic Felix. And this is the unfortunate thing with having a scaling mid laner, because for Flipper, it's like you want to play for bot lane, you want to play for top lane. Obviously, they did get that gank on mid, but it's difficult unless Pride oversteps. So when you want to play for the Nectin, you have to move all the way up to the top side. And it's just like a heavy investment to go all that way. And then you clear your camps, and then you have no reason to be there again for quite a significant time. And even you just being on the top side of the map potentially opens up an opportunity for Fnatic to steal that blue buff, to steal this dragon away. And as much as Unboxing of Nightmares may be positioning to contest this, there's nothing you can do. They don't have their jungler there. So this is just a free dragon over the side of Fnatic Rising.
Yep, Fnatic gonna be able to pick that up. It's a little bit slower than normal we see with these early dragons, but was more just a opportunistic dragon picked up for Fnatic Rising. And now as we're approaching that 8-minute mark, Fnatic will look to crash in this bot wave, and they may look to go for the swap. However, they do obviously have Prio in the top lane, so maybe Fnatic want to hold it here as long as they can. Xmadi got level 6, so he's got the arrow. Bravado, level 4. So he's actually down quite significantly in CS, though. Fnatic are just going to look for the step back here.
Yeah, you can swap here. Magic Felix will be a little bit late because he needs to catch this wave top, but very easy allows you to move up to that side of the map. And actually, it's not even going to be a bounce if he kills it quick enough. Yeah, killed it quick enough. So this is just going to be a reset wave. So perfect for Fnatic Rising to walk up to. But Barrage aren't really too much behind, so that's not too much of a concern. I mean, this is a problem. At this point, Pride still wants to be able to trade with Jadran, but Jadran's not really afraid of him anymore. Especially as one of the changes we also saw on this patch was Wukong's knockup has been reduced from 0.6 to from 0.75 seconds to 0.6 on each ultimate. And in a lot of situations, that doesn't really matter too much. Like if you're using your ult on an Ashe, you're still going to be doing the damage. With a Kassadin, that's where it really is important, because as soon as that knockup is ended, he's going to be dashing away, and now they're looking.
Yeah, Pride's going to have to pop the Cyclone and the Flash to get away. Dodges out onto Yadran there, but great little gank into the mid lane, and Pride not really having a great gut showing here on the Wukong.
Yeah, and it's trader flashes, but ultimately you burn the ult from the Wukong as well. It's a big tool, and you're also giving over this free reset to the Kassadin, and it is a situation where Barrage is playing towards their mid lane, and I'm liking seeing that because Jadran has been a critical aspect of the team consistently, and also this Kassadin is going to be a massive threat in the later stages, especially if it gets to the point where Pride can't hold them in the side lane. Magic
Flipper
either, but
buying off way more than you can chew. Stormbringer's not going to do too much as Bravado is cut down. Yadran teleports in looking for Dan. Dan's able to flash away to safety, and they trade 1-for-1. Jungler for support.
Yeah, I like the play coming out from Fnatic Rising, but ultimately the turnaround was just a bit too quick, and there's not much you can do. And it's costly because now without Bravado there, they can't really do much to set up these plays anymore. You can see Dan wants to try and contest his vision. They don't have priority top lane, so there'll be a numbers advantage in the river. He is now looking to set up a pick, actually. Bravado's respawned.
Yeah, Bravado making his way over. Not got the ultimate available to him yet. Flipper's coming in, and Dan got that tunnel on. Hook's not going to come out yet from Bravado. Holding it is Den. Able to dodge away. Pride getting stunned up by Flipper on the tail end. And looks like Fnatic actually getting forced away for the moment. The railgun gets used, and Xmadi's actually been forced to flash. Yadran jumps in forward, gets knocked up. Xmadi's trying to sustain as Yadran takes down Dan. Is answered out by Xmadi in the meantime. And now Flipper with a shield, trying to sustain forever, but he can't do so as Xmadi also getting picked up. Pride onto Den Boxneers. They're able to get the kill onto him, and Nightmares, only one standing. Bravado flashes forward, gets the auto attack in, has that dredge line coming up in a second, and Nightmares, can he shuffle away in time? Gets himself the root, but gets locked down as Pride slides in to clean it up. Fnatic get the team fight win.
And it's just Barrage being overzealous in that situation. It's a level 8 Kassadin who's a lot of your damage there, and they overstep into that tribe rush away from the rest of their team, end up not having vision in the area as well. And I think Barrage have taken the advantage they had in terms of HP and gone, okay, cool. We have more HP. We're going to move on to the Herald. I think you can see from the situation that it's a nice disengage from Nightmares there, And the sort of formation here where they have Fnatic trapped against the wall.
We might need to come out in real time. Flipper just gets himself killed.
Dead. But continuing the replay, you can see they're corralled in a nice spot there. They're chunking them out. But Jadran opts to commit super heavily. And now they're in a rough spot where Maddie's consistently getting damage up here and he can't be challenged. Then Roxy does finally flash over. This puts him into a really close quarters situation where Pride can get a ton of value and just keep hitting everyone. So ultimately, Barrage overstepping their advantage and they end up throwing it away.
During the replay, they're still going on.
A long fight.
Yeah, it was a long fight. They actually do see Fnatic pick up the Herald.
Yeah, so he just missed. If you saw it, you can see it in the bottom right, but essentially what happened there was we saw a pick on a Flipper, instantly translated in the Herald for Fnatic Rising, and now they're moving that over to the bot side where they're going to try and get control of this Dragon. Already got one in the pocket. If they get the second, obviously puts the threat off that soul onto the enemy team. Barrage trying to answer.
Yeah, Flipper jumping in. Bravado goes golden to dodge away, gets the hook off and the depth charge. Flipper just getting minced through as Pride gets the knock up and able to secure the kill. Now in comes Dan, gets the knock up onto Yadrin as Yadrin looks to shift away. Xmaddie, only one standing as Barrage actually come up bigger in the fight.
And it was a bold call there by Fnatic because they just didn't even opt to bring MagiFelix in at all. At no point did they make the call, TP in, you know, we need your backup. They just opt to keep him there, so a little bit risky. Did end up costing them the fight quite heavily in that situation, so not sure it was the right call. And now Barrage should just be able to pick up the Dragon here as well. Yeah, I'm not too sure on the decision making there. I mean, you can see there's so much time bought here. It was a nice clone from Pride and then the stopwatch as well. And at no point in this entire skirmish, at no point in this fight, despite Dan engaging, did they think, oh, let's bring the Azir in.
Yeah, I think Fnatic realized that it was maybe a little doomed halfway through and went, okay, MagiFelix not necessary.
Which is, I think it's fine not to bring MagiFelix in, but I don't think it's fine when Dan tries to dive the backline when you made the decision not to bring him in. That's the mistake to me. It's fine to opt out of these objectives, but bare minimum, you should be on the same page. Now, they are funneling a lot of gold into MagiFelix. He's farming up a Storm and is now getting this tower in his pocket as well, which will be the first, so...
Oh, Pride. That is not where it needs to be. Has to flash away. Does look like we might get a second charge out from MagiFelix top lane, though, as Dreedy, I don't think he's going to be able to get to the eye in time. Is just about able to do so.
You can just dash and take it down. So no second charge, but ultimately they got what they wanted. They have a ton of gold funneled onto MagiFelix. And I'd like to have a look at the gold numbers right now, because from the skirmishes, we're seeing a lot is picked up by Jadran on this Kassadin. But MagiFelix is actually ahead, has the most gold in the game. Now, this could be different if Jadran wasn't fed so many kills from these skirmishes. If Dan didn't overcommit in that situation, maybe you would see a bigger gap. But right now, that is my big concern. You've just spent all your resources. You sacrificed a Dragon to funnel gold into MagiFelix, and Jadran's only 200 gold down. So I'm not sure that's going to work to your game plan.
Yeah, especially as Yadrin very close towards this level 11 mark as well. So he gets 2 points into Riftwalk. Obviously, level 16 is the scariest break for that champion, but even so, very typical though for Barrage, especially for Yadrin to kind of pick up a scaling mid, but also to recognize when and how to punish with it early. Something we've seen consistently from him throughout the entire of the season. And just kind of hitting that mark once again. Xmaddie does have his Blade the Ruin King now finished up and is looking just to finish up his Cole.
Honestly, I'm just a bit concerned because Fnatic Rising have a great mid game. There's no doubt about it. And they should look to be getting a massive lead off that. But if they don't... Oh, that's a bit of a whiff on the ult there. If they don't manage to get an advantage over Barrage, they could really start to have trouble in the late stages of the game, because at some point, the lack of damage won't be relevant because Jadran will just take over the game. Nightmares will continue to scale up with the souls. That's the bit where I'm kind of worried about. And as well, when Dan and Pride start to fall off. Obviously, there's still always going to be strength in the Wukong's ultimate, fighting that AoE. But there will come a point where he just isn't doing enough damage to really challenge like of Jadran.
Yeah. For now, Fnatic still up in gold. The carries are the ones with a lot of that gold as well, so have to see how effectively they're going to be able to use that. It feels like 16 minutes in the game's kind of starts to take a bit of a chiller pace for both of these teams. Xmadi just trying to farm up towards his Hurricane, finish off that Cole. Magic Felix continuing to try and scale up on the Azir. He's got the Nash's, got the Blasting Wand. And Yadrin could be on the receiving end of a little gank as Magic Felix jumps in with a shuffle. Flipper comes in afterwards. Dan gets stunned up and Yadrin just flashes him forward. They're looking for the kill onto Yadrin as the shutdown's picked up for Bravado. A 2-for-1 as Fnatic continue to chase. Then Voxy being corralled away by Xmadi, but overcomes the Renekton, and Xmadi actually gets locked up and taken out by the Railgun. Then Voxy's able to snipe it up, and Magic Felix has got the rest of the team at his backline, and Pride picks up the kill. Den just need to be very, very careful here. I think they're just going to dive in onto him. Double kill picked up onto Pride, and Nightmares can take a bit of damage from the Stand Soldiers. Fnatic should be able to take this turret.
Finally, they stopped playing around the Azir, incorporating Magic Felix in these fights, and it just felt like Fnatic were way more ready for that. They committed to that. They had the TP follow-up instantly from Pride, and they just executed pretty effectively. But now Magic Felix in trouble.
Yeah, he's been stunned up. He doesn't have anywhere to shift to, and the shutdown from the Sky Splitter is there for Flipper.
And this is the thing. You see when there's a plan from Fnatic Rising, they can execute on it. We saw that in the top lane play. But then they're just still a little bit messy, and they're not looking like our top team, which would tee them up to be. We're seeing mistakes here. Magic Felix being caught out. Pride consistently caught out in this game. Matty overstepping and being picked off there. And I have a lot of question marks in this situation. Now, both teams have reset, but Magic Felix is still down. He has TP. But this Dragon is already up and available. One team wants to start it. Jadrin's pushing the top lane with TP available, so kind of becomes difficult. You can see Magic Felix heading up to answer him. That means they don't have him grouped up. So actually kind of a nice bluff there from Fnatic Rising, because Barrage backed away because of the numbers advantage, expecting the TP from Magic Felix. But Fnatic Rising don't even bring him in. They just send him straight top lane to defend. But ultimately, so you're seeing a bit of a diverge from that top lane tower. It's like Fnatic just sacrificing it to Jadrin. Magic Felix isn't comfortable defending alone against Kassadin. And this is working pretty well for Barrage.
Yeah, I think overall, losing that Dragon isn't the end of the world for them, as they are just continuing to get gold onto this Kassadin. It's got 8 stats on the rower. Building towards the Archangels as well. Turret will fall in the bot lane, and Xmadi's going to get some free time on this mid lane turret, but doesn't really have enough here to actually take it down. He will do some significant damage to it, however. That is going to be pretty much as they're going to be able to get mid lane for the moment. Herald has spawned up, and actually it is Barrage who have the inside track on it with this Kassadin in the top lane, so
I mean, that's the
Barrage
thing, Fnatic leaned so heavily bot side for the Dragon that there was just no way they were contesting that Herald. So Barrage being able to secure that is pretty nice. Obviously, the damage on mid tower was solid for Fnatic Rising, but ultimately the tower is still healthy enough to be alive. And again, Fnatic go for that pick. They want to keep the momentum going. They want to be fine in these fights, but the movement speed from this bot lane of Barrage is just enough to disengage. And yes, Barrage are 3,000 gold down. I'm still feeling a little bit tentative about Fnatic Rising, especially because a lot of that gold lead will be the jungle difference, where you have a big CS lead in favor of Dan. And I think Fnatic need to find a strong fight and be able to translate that into a Baron, because I think if, give another 10 minutes to this game, things will be a lot more precarious.
yeah. You can see, like I said, the gold lead, 1,000 of that gold lead is on Dan over Flipper right now. Magic Felix, 100 gold up over Jadrin. It's not quite the position that Fnatic want to find themselves in, but I do feel that at this point, Fnatic should still be relatively strong in these fights. The Kassadin's not completely ready to take over them yet.
I mean, absolutely. I think right now Fnatic are stronger in fights by far. I think they are really comfortable in them. As long as they don't make mistakes with their overcommitment, playing to the Karma shields, they should be fine.
Treaty maybe getting baited out here, going in for the Cyclone. Pride almost goes down, but Magic Felix able to get the kill. The shuffle is not there, and Magic Felix just going to have to jump away from Yadrin, who's hunting him down. The rest of Fnatic are making their way over, but same for Flipper. Magic Felix got the soldiers just to make sure no one can chase through those corridors. There's a trade out 1-for-1, top for top.
But again, Barrage are fine with this. Oh, Engage comes in. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, Denvoxney. There's way too much CC for him to deal with. Xmatty picks the kill up.
So Power of the Ash, just you consistently throw those arrows down. The cooldown isn't too high. And even if it misses a few times, when you find that pick, it can make just such a huge difference in terms of pressure. You can see instantly Dan's pushing up towards to get control of Red Side River. Red Side Jungle, sorry. The rest of the team is just looking to siege on mid. With the tower, outer tower already down. It's just the impact. One misstep can be so costly in games like these.
So costly. And I mean, Denvoxney 1-3 hasn't had the most incredible game on the Karma. Xmatty has been kind of fishing for him for a little while now.
Kind of weird, I feel, going for the Haunting guys. I mean, I guess this is a concern about the lack of damage, but typically we see Karmas go a more supportive build after Ludens, you know, like your Athenes, potentially an Ardent. As much as they actually have quite a lot of on-hitters with regards to Jadron and Flipper, Dreedy, and Nightmares as well, so they would get value out of that for the AoE shields. Now, Nightmares...
Yeah, looking in to go for Nightmares. Xmatty gets stunned up. The tower will fall. Magic Felix continues to chase in forward. Slowed down by the Sky Splitter, but Pride is on the flank. Gets himself the kill onto Nightmares. Easy as Denvoxney double knocked up. Ash Arrow from downtown connects onto Flipper. As there's a double kill for Pride. Yadrin is on the flank and he might try and find himself a sneaky little lady carry as he can just shift over the wall. Xmatty's isolated, but Xmatty's just turning the damage back around. Yadrin gets sent packing.
Yadrin just not quite with the damage yet at this point. They are still looking for him here.
Actually, Magic Felix has a lot of damage to work with. Yadrin gets flashed on and Magic Felix secures himself his second kill. And Fnatic with that kill should just be able to translate this into a Baron Nashor. You can see, though, Dreedy answering out with something for the team in the bot lane, taking this turret. Although he can't actually stick around because the wave's about to die out. Dragon is spawning up and teleports are getting used. Looks like I might just have the old trade here for Fnatic and Barrage. Objective for objective.
But be a bit careful because Dan's running over. Smite isn't going to be up though, so I think they're just going to end up sacrificing this one. But I think you find that situation is Fnatic. Actually, can Dan steal with a Void Seeker?
Can he? Oh! That was close.
A little bit close for comfort. Someone probably should have looked to block, but ultimately we end up seeing Barrage secure that one. So it's a consolation prize, but still not great. And I think we're seeing there just the veterancy of Fnatic Rising. Their ease at executing these coordinated plays. A beautiful flank from Pride there with the TP. And it was just Denvoxney Nightmares overextending again. Barrage overextending
Ash Arrow's
here.
up. Yadrin's going to get clipped and all of the CC's onto him. Down he goes. Dan secures the kill. As Flipper's cut down as well. Fnatic find a quick 2.
And it's just disrespectful from Barrage. They overstep mid lane, they get caught, they lose Baron. They overstep there for a blue buff, they get caught, they lose. I mean, we're going to see, but likely going to be a lot here. Fnatic Rising are unwavering, and yes, we got a slow early game, a little bit messy, but now they are just looking to end this game as soon as possible.
Yeah, there were some mistakes, but Magic Felix comes in for the Shurima shuffle. Denvoxney is taken out. And the rest of Barrage will fall. A double kill, make it a triple kill for Magic Felix. The inhibitor has fallen, and Fnatic, there were some mistakes, there were some issues that need to be ironed up, and Yadrin has going to make a miracle happen as Flipper does jump in. The tower's still standing. Yadrin looking to try and mop up a little bit here, but he's unable to do so. Magic Felix gets himself the other kill. Nexus is going to go down. 25 minutes on the clock, and Fnatic close out.
And honestly, a bit of a slow start from Fnatic Rising. And Barrage did give them a bit back in return, but ultimately Fnatic Rising shown why we're seeing them as our top team. The coordination, the execution was just really solid there. That flank from Pride set it up, and from then on, it's almost like there's like an on switch for Fnatic. It's like, okay, we're ending the game, and immediately they start setting these plays to find the advantages. For a long time, they were just happy having Magic Felix farm up in the top lane. And I think it was something that was talked about in the desk, how we saw Fnatic had this really strong mid game. Maybe the casting becomes a concern later. And as soon as it got to that point, it just felt like it was only a couple of minutes till the game was over. I think it shows what is so scary about Fnatic. But I will say, Barrage had some good early game ideas.
Yeah.
I think the play around Jadrin in the mid lane was solid and did set him up to a degree.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. To be honest, it feels to me like Barrage seem to be one of the teams that challenge Fnatic the hardest. They seem to have their book, but something about Fnatic, like you said, there's just this switch that gets flipped and they just turn the game on its head as soon as mid game comes, as soon as late game comes sometimes. But most of the time, it's just a very clean and controlled later stage. But Fnatic are able to get themselves the win. That makes them 5-0 in the standings. We are going to cut to a quick break when we're back. We'll have the analyst desk break this game down. So we will see you 5-0. See you after the break.
Waking up, the sun is rising. We can go anywhere, do anything. Put your hand in my hand, let's explore. Travel places no one's been before. Leave your fears and hear you calling. Wherever you go, wherever you are, your beauty's unique. So sweet, our differences make our union so great. Together we perfect harmony, perfect harmony. Together we will be perfect harmony. Let's get lost in a forest of green. Lose ourselves in the blue of the sea. Paint the world any color we choose, or a rainbow with all of the hues. Make the world the way that we dream. Wherever you go, wherever you are, your beauty's unique. Melody so sweet, our differences make our union so great. Together we perfect harmony, perfect harmony. Together we will be perfect harmony. Together we'll be, together we'll be perfect harmony.
Am I wasting time? 'Cause I'm already gone. So long. Can you stay the night? 'Cause you're the thing I want. I want. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out. But even with no makeup, you still stand out. 'Cause no one makes me feel the way you do now. Like you do now. The way that you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discuss.
Well, we thought there was hope. There was a brief moment in that game where all of us were saying, wait a second, Barrage, and then Fnatic do what they do best, capitalize on mistakes and crush them. 25 minutes. Was not expecting that from the early game that Fnatic had and the way that Barrage were responding. But in the end of the day, Fnatic does what Fnatic does best, and that's win games.
in all honesty, my biggest concern there was the team composition, and it ended up being the downfall, right? Because there was so much hard engage that it didn't matter if Yadron was actually fed or not. It took only one misstep for everyone to go down. And I think it happened in like consecutive fights. There was even a fight up in the Dragon area where even Nautilus was level 5, didn't even have an ultimate, and then the whole of Barrage dives in, they all die. Because this is what hard CC and lockdown does. You just can't move, you get stuck in one place and just killed to death.
Yeah, and there's a few instances where Fnatic is looking not so good too. They're taking a few fights where Yatron actually gets a chance to equalize and actually fast forward his Kassadin pick here. In the end, it's just not enough. There's not composition driven around this Kassadin enough for it to succeed. But you can also see that it's Pride who's really uncomfortable in the mid lane, or so it at least looked when he was going against this Kassadin. Can't really blame him. He used most of his time as a top laner, unlike Matchy Felix, who spends most of his time in every role. So obviously he's going to look fine in the top side too. And after that point, Fnatic just looked like the better team. You could talk about individual performances as much as you'd like, but in the end, as I said, Fnatic looked like the better team.
I think we can say that a lot about Fnatic in general, whenever they play in the NLC. They are quite clearly the best team in Group B right now. Let's have a look at the play of the game then, Gulberg. I'm actually going to bring you back in for this one. We have the play of the game here for the Fnatic versus Barrage game. Talk me through this one.
Yeah, basically, it's the infamous topside fight here. I think it's just it's a bit a mistake coming in for it. Matchy Felix being a bit too fast forward against Yatron here on a Kassadin, but they secure a lot of kills here, and they're really good at shutting down every opponent on the side. Over at the side of Barrage here, you can see that they come around here. Overall, I think this fight just symbolizes this game in a nutshell. It's going back and forth here. You can see how Dreedy comes in, cleans up on Xmathy, and then afterwards, we're going to see that Pride and the rest of the crew with Matchy Felix going back up to the top side to Barrage, who's overextending here. I don't know what the box is doing up here. Really easy for Pride to come in here. And then it's Nightmare who's forced to flash away. And it's just the individual skill level and the decision making from Fnatic netting them these kills, and in the end, just a game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think overall, like, Fnatic played out the game pretty well. There were some really big errors in draft from Barrage, in my opinion. You know, Kassadin was basically your engage tool alongside your damage dealer, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But I want to come back to something we said in the pregame, which is we want to see Fnatic not making these small mistakes. Like, we hold them to a higher standard than we hold the rest of the teams in the NLC. And I think there were enough errors, especially from Pride early on in the mid lane, that I'm still not entirely convinced by Fnatic. I know they'll be really good in their group. I know they're likely to go undefeated, but when we get to something like EU Masters, I'm not sure that these sort of mistakes will go unpunished by the higher level teams.
I think that's a fair assessment. I'm actually going to take that now. I'm going to take that in a little ball and go over to an interview with the coach of Fnatic, because it's going to be a good segue. I'm sure Nico was listening very carefully to your analysis, Medic. And actually, let's start on that. Do you think that there are still mistakes that you're making that when you transfer to your European Masters level, they could get punished?
I think EU Masters is going to be very different than how it is in the Nordic League right now. And I think also just playoffs is going to be completely different. I think teams don't have too good of a read of each other right now. And it's a lot easier to see actual skill level and best of series. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's just a lot of who has the better day and who has the better draft. And today, I just think we had the better draft.
Yeah, I think a lot of the analysts kind of touched on it. There was way too much scaling for Barrage, and they're just never able to get there with the engage that you had, I guess. Let's kind of, this is really sad because I want to be coming to these interviews with you, Nico, and be like, wow, Fnatic are amazing, like, congratulations, but we know that. We know that you are. Like, you are quite obviously one of the best teams in the league. So I feel like when we come to these interviews, like, what can we talk about in terms of improvement for Fnatic? Because I could just come into these and just praise Fnatic over and over again, but I think it's quite clear from your results that we don't need to. You're already proving that yourself. Is there anything that you are focusing on improving as a team? If you're, because obviously it's quite difficult for the lay viewer to look at Fnatic and say, like, what are they doing wrong? Like, they're unbeaten. But is there anything that you're actually actively working on as a roster in terms of improving weaknesses?
We have many mistakes in our gameplay, and there's not everything that actually comes to play in the actual match games. And in our practices and in our scrims, we are scrimming a lot of LEC teams and a lot of very, very strong teams. So we get, I feel, more exposed in scrims, but even in scrims, we're doing really, really, really well. And when you're on a streak like we are right now, it's a lot about just like cleaning up the play and cleaning up our comms and being on the same page and just having the same read of different situations so that we can enter it together and be as one. And that's something we are constantly working on.
Of course, and I think there was still a couple of shakes in the early game, but one of the things of Fnatic is that you always find a way to punish mistakes really easily. Like you capitalize on mistakes better than any other team in the league. I feel like the advantages that you take from them are very snowbally. And last question, you mentioned the LEC teams. Do you scrim the Fnatic LEC team much?
Yeah, we do scrim them here and there. So could you give me an insight into results? Give me a little insight into results. How are you doing versus the LEC side? In general, versus most LEC teams that we scrim, we actually go even or ahead. So I think we are a really strong scrim team. But there are weaknesses that we show on stage that are completely different from the weaknesses that we show in scrim. So it's always about figuring out and combining scrims with stage and trying to learn from both, because it's a very different environment, and also going to be a different environment when we get into playoffs, when it's a best of series. I think when we get more even drafts and people get to spoil our priorities a bit more, I think the games are going to be more even, and I think we're going to get a more challenging road ahead of us.
Sure. Well, look, Nico, like I said, I find these interviews like with when we have Fnatic on really difficult to navigate, because it's obviously you're just doing so well. And still massive congratulations to you, because you're now 6-0 in the league and still unbeaten. We're very much expecting you to seeing you at the top of the NLC playoff race, and I'm sure we'll get to speak to you again. Cheers for joining.
Thank you.
All right, guys, plenty to wrap up and discuss with that, but I do need to move on to our third game of the day. It is going to be M&M going up against Monster. We'll see you very soon.